Is what I'm about to say unbelievable or not? Now, the reason why I even want to ask this question in the first place is because a lot of people like to tell me that, wow, with Zebec being down almost 10% in the past 24 hours and generally not doing so good in 2026, they like to tell me that it's cooked, roasted, toasted, and even deep fried. But we got to think about this logically, right? In terms of their latest volume report, Zebec does not really indicate a project that is totally cooked, despite the price charts. And let me show you what I mean by that in today's video, even though this is just my personal perspective, my opinion, and nothing I say is financial advice. This is just purely, again, my outlook. But did you know that when it comes to Zebec, in the month of May alone, their total card volume was $67 million, with over 20,000 cards issued and over 500,000 transactions. Not to mention, they supported 21 chains. This all happened throughout 97 countries, by the way. So let's just let that sink in. Me just saying those figures right there makes me want to go ahead and take a shower, even though I already have, but it's just a figure of speech, because reading those statistics, those figures, it feels like a workout to me. Feels like running on the treadmill. You know what I mean? Just like jogging like that. But besides that point, though, it doesn't end there, because did you know that when it comes to their payroll side of things, or the payroll side of things, I should say, their payroll volume was $51 million monthly. So again, is this an indicator that the project is cooked? Not necessarily, right? I mean, sure, okay, the price charts are not doing the best, but their actual core products, they're, having actual volume. So yeah, sure, other projects out there, their team needs to keep selling the treasury or whatnot or whatever to kind of survive a market downturn. But with those type of figures, when it comes to Zebec, like again, it showcases that it's very sustainable actually in terms of having this business model that doesn't fizzle out when the market isn't doing the best. Because a lot of other projects out there, they're really impressive when the market is doing very well. But when the market isn't doing the best, typically because their business model in some cases isn't that sustainable, they just can't really continue. What happens if that is the case? Either the project closes up shop, or maybe developments stop happening, there's no more updates. It's not so good, usually. But if we take a look at Zebec, did you know that allegedly, this is from what I understand and based off of what the CEO said himself on a podcast not too long ago, did you know that the CEO of Zebec said that Zebec as a company holds around 50% of ZBCN? So again, that seems like a lot. But if we consider in the grand scheme of things, Ripple, they hold around 40% when it comes to XRP. So again, if it's okay for Ripple, why is it suddenly not okay when it comes to Zebec? But besides that point, allegedly, Zebec as a company never sold any of their ZBCN, so far at least. So that's kind of impressive. It showcases that they have an actual sustainable business model that doesn't require them to keep, panic exiting out of their holdings, if that makes sense. So I do like seeing this. Now, let's keep in mind as well, when it comes to the payroll side of things, allegedly Zebec served over 13,000 employees in the month of May, and its enterprise clients was 246. Again, that's really impressive. Now, people like to say, well, this other project did a lot more. This other project did something more impressive. Well, look, right? I mean, Zebec is not the best project out there. It's not the best performing. It's by no means even the most popular. It's just not. It's not top 10, not top 50, not top 100, at least when it comes to this space. But again, if we consider all those factors right there, it's pretty impressive what it's been able to achieve so far, if that kind of makes sense, right? Because again, we take a look at Zebec, people don't usually take a look at a project like this and assume that these are the figures. Usually these are the figures for a project that is like, top 50 maybe or something like that. But Zebec, it's not even top 100 and it has these type of figures. It's a big thumbs up. I mean, really impressive in my opinion. Now, people like to tell me that, oh wow, when it comes to Zebec, if it's doing so well in terms of the figures, why is it not really translating to the price charts? Well, because this space doesn't operate in the same way other markets do. If I take a look at, let's say, a company out there, if they do something really amazing, they launch a fantastic product, net profit is looking really good, profit margin is looking fantastic. If it's listed, usually we see the price charts be affected in a positive way in terms of the stock price. But when it comes to the space, it's a little bit different. Like a amazing partnership could happen, or let's say a fantastic, report could come out when it comes to a project. It won't really do much if the market isn't doing the best, if that makes sense. This space is just a little bit different. And some people like to ask me, why even bother with a space like this? They wonder why even care about Zebec in the first place. Well, first of all, I don't have to. It's purely voluntary and I can't speak on anyone's behalf. However, I do like the fundamentals. I like the aspect of payrolls when it comes to Zebec. I like how they still have a lot of things in the works, like for instance, potentially launching the super app in terms of the mobile version, hopefully soon. However, also keep in mind, there's allegedly a very massive partnership that could very well be coming when it comes to Zebec. It hasn't been announced so far, so maybe there's been a little bit of a delay, but we have to consider. Allegedly, there's going to be this large bank in Europe that's going to be announcing a partnership with Zebec, and it's actually going to make use of the Stellar and Zebec partnership for the first time ever. So that's something else that I'm looking forward to. And also, not to mention, Zebec, in terms of popularity as of late, it's been kind of, heading up there in a pretty okay way, which may sound kind of counterintuitive, like, what the price actually did kind of bad in 2026, but we got to think about this. In 2026 alone, we've seen the amount of holders increase by over 10,000, which I get it. People like to say, dude, that's not that much, but we got to think about this as well. The starting point when it comes to Zebec for 2026 was what, around 95,000 holders, or around 90,000? Now we have 107,000 approximately. Kind of impressive. And I think that's partly due to the Stellar partnership, the Ripple partnership, and the launch of the super app in terms of the desktop version. We haven't seen the mobile version yet, but we've seen the desktop version. So we got to think about that. Sometimes people do pay attention to what a project is doing. It may not really affect the price at all if the market isn't doing the best, but at the same time, at least it's kind of indicating that some people are at least taking a look at something like this. And how, yeah, sure, some people are exiting, but some people are entering in some cases. And I think that even though XDC, which is another project much like Zebec that is focused on global trade and finance within this space, XDC, even though I'm a fan of it historically, and even though historically it's just more popular than Zebec, I just don't see XDC doing much as of late when compared to Zebec. Zebec still feels like they have that motivation. It still feels like they're very driven. XDC, I'm still a fan of it, don't get me wrong, but historically in the past, I saw the drive, I saw the kind of the vision, but as of right now, Zebec's just been kind of taking the lead in terms of more partnerships, doing more things basically. And I kind of also view this to a large extent as well when compared to Zebec's closest competitor, which is called Onyx. Onyx historically is more popular than Zebec. Onyx last year reached around $1 billion in terms of market cap. Zebec only reached around half of that at around 540 million. So Onyx clearly is more popular than Zebec, historically speaking. But if we take a look at 2026, Onyx hasn't been doing too much when compared to Zebec. Onyx's greatest accomplishment in 2026 was launching the mainnet of its layer 1 blockchain called Goliath. But if we take a look at Zebec, what's pretty interesting about this is that in 2026, a Stellar partnership, a Ripple partnership, and the launch of the super app in terms of the desktop version, it's just very impressive. It's just a lot more kind of impressive, in my opinion, when compared to the rest of the competition in some cases. Now, if we take a look at it as well, someone the other day asked me, oh wow, Zebec really needs to reduce their circulating supply. Well, actually, they have a measure to try to mitigate that. And I'll actually find this post real quick when it comes to what I mean by this. So did you know that actually in the first quarter of this year alone, so in Q1 of 2026, Zebec actually reacquired almost 20 million Zebec? And that's not in terms of dollars, that's in terms of like 20 million actual like Zebec, right? So we got to think about that. Zebec is still doing things. That's the thing. So yeah, sure, it may not be too much, especially if we consider how, let's say, the maximum supply of Zebec is 100 billion, and then they only reacquired almost 20 million in the first quarter of this year. It's not like too much, right? But it's still pretty impressive. And again, that's not $20 million. It's just like almost 20 million Zebec. But yeah, besides that point, at least it's a measure to try to kind of mitigate the supply. A deflationary measure, I would assume, because it's even said, right, that Zebec, the revenue that they get from their products and stuff like that, hypothetically, some of it is used to reacquire Zebec. So I like the deflationary measure when it comes to that. Now, people like to say, well, why hasn't the circulating supply reduced by that much? Well, it's because the Zebec products in general haven't become like so popular, right? I mean, it's doing okay, but it's not so popular to allow kind of a significant decrease in the circulating supply when it comes to Zebec. But this type of stuff takes time anyways, usually, right? Mass adoption could take quite a while, but at least the measures are there. And seeing Zebec as of right now at around a 240 million market cap, you know what? If I can dollar cost average into Zebec at around a 240 million market cap, I don't know why I'd complain. I'm not telling anyone to do anything, but I don't mind the dip though. That's the thing. I like the dip actually. You know, last year Zebec was at around a 540 million market cap. We're over 2 times lower than that. If it goes back to that, you know, I'm going to Sizzler, which I get it. People like to say, wow, that's so lame. It's just like, you know, over 2 times lower than that. Who cares? Well, you know, I care because, first of all, I started believing in Zebec when the market cap was below 100 million. But even despite that as well, even if, let's say, I never cared about Zebec back then when the market cap was way lower, even right now, again, going back to around 540 million, we're over 2 times lower than that. In which case, again, it may seem kind of bad, but other markets out there, like if let's say silver or gold or platinum did a hypothetical 2 times movement, it would be considered like very legendary, right? But when it comes to this, suddenly it's not. If it could even do that, and the major word is if, right? You know, again, why is it suddenly exciting for other markets but not for this? It just doesn't make sense to me. I kind of view it the same way. You know, if I went home, I had one pair of shoes, and then suddenly tomorrow I had 2 pairs of shoes, I would not complain. I wouldn't be like, oh, you know, why didn't the shoes multiply by 5 times? No, I wouldn't care about that. I'd be like, whoa, wow, from 1 to 2? That's really impressive. So again, I don't find it bad when it comes to this, but yeah, this is just my personal opinion, and I'll be sure to make more updates when it comes to Zebec moving forward. So I want to say thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a very nice day. I'm out. Peace. Bye.